A crackdown on terror in Belgium, police hunting down would-be terrorists. In France, more than 50 people arrested, including a comedian for a Facebook post that sympathizes, they say, with the Paris attackers. And here in America, we're seeing new efforts by ISIS to recruit homegrown terrorists on social media. So, EMAC, you say it's time for Twitter and Facebook to do more to block out the bad guys.
Yeah, they should do more to block out the bad guys. They don't have a good system to police it. They rely on users, people who use their social media accounts to do the policing for them. They like to call themselves the town square, but you don't have people pouring into the town square, you know, saying chop off people's heads. You have the cops policing the town square. Twitter and YouTube and Facebook, they don't have the people policing it. So I say for now, block it. You don't want to poison young minds.
And Rich, speaking of the police, that NYPD cop killer actually posted some stuff on Instagram, the famous putting wings on pigs on Instagram before, and we weren't alerted to it.
Yeah, but I don't know, practically speaking, how you could block all of this stuff. If you take just Twitter as one example, Twitter, there are between 500 million and 1 billion tweets per day. Facebook has about 1.5 billion monthly active users. So the numbers are enormous. And the really serious terrorists are going to use some kind of coded language anyway.
Carrie, according to Rich, it's impossible to do it.
I disagree. I'm with EMAC on this one because we know it's possible. For example, with Speaker Boehner, he's had specific credible threats on his life that were made on Twitter. Police apprehended the people who were doing it. They had weapons. I mean, this was a very dangerous problem. So EMAC's right. We can monitor. We can create algorithms. We can capture people before it gets into the real world.
Which, Steve, is apparently what happened with that guy who was threatening Boehner.
Well, the thing is, in terms of if you get a threat, if somebody does a threat against me, I've got things that pointed out right away. But to have Facebook or Twitter try to police it, I mean, ISIS does not have ISIS.org where they say what they're going to do each day, or Al-Qaeda.com. And so you need the NSA and others to have patterns where they can detect bad things. But to have those organizations do it, you're going to get campus code speech codes on steroids. It's going to be a disaster.
But, John, on the other hand, the Boston bombers were one group that learned how to use their bombs from a website, apparently. They learned how to create one of their bombs, that they're deadly bombs, by the way, from one of these jihadi websites.
And it's tragic, but there's no way in the world we live in you're going to keep information getting from other people. And the important thing to remember is there's all sorts of inflammatory rhetoric on the internet, but 99.999% of it never leads to violence. And so the idea that we can somehow block out the certain few that are going to communicate on it is just, it's not a credible concept. You're not going to succeed in reducing terrorism by blocking the internet.
But, Sabrina, when we see a website like the stuff that Inspire, that Al-Qaeda website has, that tells you how to make bombs, should we leave that up for the nuts to use it and kill people?
Actually, I think we should, and here's why. Look, I think terrorism is so complicated because it's this weird mix of sort of this savage beheadings and awful violence that's mixed with social media and technology and the fact that they're able to get their message out there via these new platforms. And as a country that is based on civil liberties and free speech, this is complicated for us to navigate, but this is why we should leave it up there. It actually allows us to better thwart these things before they happen. All of the examples that everyone has been giving are ways that we've been able to stop terrorism. It's actually really important that they're out there, that there's chatter. We have the CIA that's been tracking this for years and years. The terrorists know this, but they continue to chatter. So it's actually shooting ourselves
hold on a second. EMAC, I love Sabrina to death, but when I hear anybody say it's too complicated, I think of the Washington and the Ivy League brains that actually avoid the simple truth. Isn't it a little simpler than that?
Yeah, it's a real roll of the dice to rely on bureaucrats who didn't see the housing crash coming or didn't see the dot-com crash coming.
It's common sense, right?
Didn't see 9/11 coming. Yeah, it is common sense. Listen, law enforcement here and overseas repeatedly warn the cyber jihadis are out there recruiting on the internet. I'm saying don't leave it up to Twitter, and you know they should work in collaboration to catch these guys, to stop these guys. You don't just have it in social media or on the internet. You have law enforcement always collaborating with companies to stop the bad guys from killing and murdering innocent people.
And Rich, there are a lot of examples that we're getting. Also, another New York City case. The guy who attacked the cop with a hatchet, apparently he was posting things as well. I mean, they're telegraphing us messages. Shouldn't we use those telegraphs?
Yeah, but as Steve points out, I think that's an issue for the NSA and other organizations, not for Facebook and Twitter. And remember, these vile organizations do not have their servers in the United States. They're elsewhere. So, you know, this is a very complicated problem.
Well, there's that word, complicated again. So, you know, again, if we leave it to the NSA, I always think that the government, even if they're hot shots in the government, are always a couple of steps behind the people that are working for Facebook or Instagram, Carrie.
Right. Well, and if it's complicated, that means we need all hands on deck. We need citizens stepping up, playing a role, working with the NSA, working with law enforcement. It sounds like defeatists on this panel. We can put a man on the moon. We can catch people on Twitter. It's not that hard.
Last word from Steve. Go ahead.
Well, as Rich pointed out, when you have 1 billion, 2 billion tweets and messages each day, try to figure out and come up with patterns that are going to be foolproof. I guarantee you, as Rich says, 99% of them are going to be false leads.
Well, no foolproof, but I said Steve, but Sabrina, I heard you wanting to chime in. Go ahead. There's nothing is foolproof, but can't we at least do better than what we're doing?
Well, I'm sure there are algorithms that people can do to try to track this. The question is, do we actually want to? And I think we want to be careful that we don't have these companies going down a slippery slope. What else are they supposed to be monitoring for? You know, insider trading or kidnapping or other domestic violence? I don't know.
It's a tough issue. Thank you, gang. The Cashin' In gang, by the way, getting ready to roll out at the bottom of the hour. Eric, what do you have coming?
Hey, David, craziest